Julie, thank you very much for setting this up today. We'd like to call this meeting into order. It's now 3:07, and we have a special public meeting. The first portion of any public meeting is the public comment, but given the executive order, this is suspended to the extent necessary to permit any public body to meet and take actions authorized by law without permitting in public in-person access to meetings and authorizing such meetings to be held remotely by conference call or similar service. So first, we can pass this off to Russell for our suggested resolution. So Russell, I'll let you take this from here. And then after resolutions, we have a quick discussion.
Okay, so as we discussed at our prior board meeting, we adopted the village budget. We did not need to, although we were authorized if we needed to, go over the tax cap. The board passed a operating budget that did not exceed the tax cap, and therefore we would need to have a public hearing regarding repealing the local law to go exceed the tax levy, and then we can pass the local law to repeal it. So the suggested resolution is resolved that the Board of Trustees directs that the administrator publish and post for a public hearing to be held on May 14th, 2020, to hear any and all persons for or against the local law to repeal local law number 1 of 2020, authorizing a tax levy in excess of the limit established in general municipal law section 3C. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. And I think what we've done in the past is we've turned this now over to Village Attorney Brian Egan, who will kind of lead the discussion portion of this.
Thank you, Russell. Thank you, Mayor, members of the Board of Trustees. Going through the agenda as we've done before on these special meetings. One, the first issue is the current status of Village Hall operations. I believe that they remain status quo, but I'll ask Russell and Julie if they're interested in that.
So Village Hall, operations are moving smoothly. We actually have had discussions this week about the potential need to increase staff presence here because of increase in mail and items that actually need to be physically processed and can't be done remotely. However, we are keeping up. Everyone is busy and working. However, again, everything is working well. With regards to personal safety and PPE, we are in good shape right now. And I will turn over to Gary with regards to general operations in the DPW and those departments.
Okay, so in the DPW, we are status quo as well. We are 50% staffed, essential work only, 1 week on, 1 week off. The grass is growing, things are getting warmer, so there are more jobs out there waiting for us. So we're going to be waiting for guidance from the governor, from the village board on deeming new jobs essential as we go along. But right now we're keeping up with what we have to do. We have no new cases of coronavirus in the DPW staff. We still have Kenny Zay as one person who's on the mend at home. And other than that, we're treading water, but we're doing good.
Good. Excellent. Thanks very much. Any questions for Russell or Gary?
Russell, you had indicated you have sufficient PPE. How are you doing, Gary?
We're actually doing fine. We've been getting more supplies in for face masks generally. We're still out there looking for some disinfectant products. Suppliers are backlogged on Lysol, wipes, things like that. But we're making do with what we have at this point.
Good. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, I'll turn to the mayor on governmental partner operations and any updates with regard to any of our partners.
Thank you, Brian. We had a call with Steve Malone and Peter Scully regarding beaches. There were a number of mayors and supervisors across the county on the call. Russell, our village administrator, joined us. So I'll let Russell kind of explain exactly what happened on that call. And that might lead to a brief discussion here. But Russell, you can take it from here. Thank you.
Okay, so the purpose of the call was to give any updates on guidance that was coming down from the state, which most everyone is on the county call, the afternoon county call for all elected officials in the county. And most of the guidance with regards to beaches is still in a little bit of limbo. What the purpose of the call was to talk about issues that we will be looking for guidance from, and also to get a feel for any special circumstances that any particular municipality has that might be unique, so that it gets addressed as guidance moves forward. So obviously we'll start from, outside the beach in. First discussion was regards with parking. And obviously even within our own village, depending on which beach we're speaking about, parking is different. Obviously we have Cooper's Beach, which is a large parking area with excess parking available, and we have others that are relatively slim and road endings. So the discussion was, are there other circumstances that villages have an idea, or municipalities have, that present unusual or different problems, and thoughts on it. So whether it was, the actual parking for the beaches, if you have benches, are you going to permit chairs, blankets? Southampton Village has a little bit of a unique situation in which we actually have concierge service. So, unlike, a lot of places where you can rent a chair and then you take it yourself, we have a concierge service. So they discussed all the different potential intricacies and unique issues that could be brought up in running a beach, and just gathering thoughts and concerns, how to separate lifeguards so that you have that you are maintaining the legal standard that you have to have, but yet proper social distancing. What protocols to put in place in the event that they do need to go in the water, or not even necessarily go into the water, if there's a safety issue that they need to deal with. So it was really a fact-gathering conversation in order for the county to deliver to us from the state as specific guidance as possible. So that's really kind of, again, some of the other things we talked about was restrooms. Do you do porta potties or do you not do porta potties? Do you have protocols in place for restrooms that have more than one stall or urinal in them? If you have concession, the difference between if you're running the concession yourself or you have a vendor that's running the concession. So these are the things that are getting prepared. All of the municipalities are ramping up, trying to proceed as normally as possible, waiting again for the guidance. One of the things that was discussed that everyone pretty much agreed upon is the need, regardless of what the restrictions are, of ramping up staffing, that there will need to be additional staffing in order to maintain whatever the rules are that are established in operating beaches, whether it be parking, the area where people enter or leave the beach, monitoring the beach for social distancing, monitoring restrooms, all of those types of things. So one of the things that I think is important for this board to understand is I think we probably should also look to increase the number of staffing that we have. When we do, I think it's important that we have conversations as to under whose supervision some of this goes, because quite clearly our beach operations is pretty much Cooper's Beach with regards to having active staff. So if we are having staffing at the other beaches, under whose supervision will that fall? Will that be TCOs under the chief's jurisdiction, or people that that report to code enforcement? Highways obviously oversees parts of the beaches. So those are the types of things that we need to kind of ready ourselves for as we move forward.
Thank you, Russell. Do any of our board members have any comments about this discussion? I mean, part of the reason we got this meeting together today was to discuss, what to do, with our beaches and what to do with our parking. We'd love to be able to hear, from our team here and work together on how to approach parking, how to approach beaches, especially as they get busier and busier, how to approach the sale of beach passes, both to non-residents. And one of the things that came up on this call was that there are definitely differences between the way various municipalities are handling this. And Russell, again, could chime in, and so could our village attorney, Brian Egan, but really wanted to get some thoughts from our team here as to what we can do in order to address a growing concern from some residents and a point of interest from residents.
All right, I'll chime in since it's been brought up. Clearly from our calls, there are different, from our county calls, with about 140 different legislators on it. There were differences in opinions of how people think they should proceed. I think Russell just pointed out something very salient, that some beaches on larger, like some county levels, or whether to open up or not, our main concern as far as staffing, which we'll have to look at others too, but clearly our municipal beach is Cooper's. And he did point out that since we do have a concierge service, meaning that if we do give out, the discussion will be whether we do chairs and umbrellas, that can actually still occur, possibly, if we have our staff deliver and lay it out. So I think that's what Russ was alluding to, was that, that's ways we can look at to continue, I guess, life as normal when it resumes on the beach. I know people, an area of contention for a lot of people is they drive by Cooper's Beach and see vehicles in it, which this past Saturday there were plenty. I saw them myself, but I went up to the beach and looked, and the beach itself was spread about. Any groups were already together, were families, but certainly no clusters, and distancing was being observed. So I think a lot of people go by and see Cooper's and just presume that there's clusters of people. That's not the case. Actually, the amount of people I saw on the beach that given time wasn't really commensurate with how many cars were in the parking lot. I do think a lot of people use the parking lot to park and then go walking or riding or biking or whatever, even on the beach or on the neighboring streets. So I think that's important to note, because as Russ just mentioned, some of this is parking, and sorry, call just came through. And I don't think that's an issue yet, and I don't think that will be an issue until we get closer to anywhere near opening the beaches. But, I think we have a good grasp on it. I think Russ has already been with the group, and our beach crew, our beach manager, has been looking at this already for a month or so. So I think we have a good grasp on where our options are going forward. But I do think it's important to note that we do, I think, have a pretty unique situation compared to, let's say, even East Hampton. East Hampton representatives have clearly a different view than I think others do. And there are some on the western end of the county that have different views. So I think Russell pointed out we have our situation is unique of how we'll be able to handle it. And the staffing is something I think will have to be considered going forward, because we're going to need extra staff perhaps to monitor and or perhaps enforce certain things. But I do want to point out to people, again, as I said in the past, enforcement is there. People are watching. Police are out there. And as I said, just because you don't see an officer or patrol vehicle, we have cameras everywhere. So there is always surveillance going on, especially in the hot spots. So please, everybody, be mindful of that.
So one of the things, just to expand on what Trustee Yastrzemski was speaking of, we have, one of our advantages is our beaches are on one long strip of road. It's not, the towns are really struggling because their beaches, can be anywhere. and spread out in numerous places. The town of Southampton has trustee beaches, and it has, beaches that are just road ends, and they have beaches that, that have lifeguards. So one of the things that is an advantage of being a village is that, the area that we're covering is relatively small. And one of the things that was being discussed is if it's conducive for doing so, and you are able to have even just a staff member that basically when people come, kind of direct where they should park and then point out where they should park their chair if they bring a chair, or their blanket, or those types of things. So even on the beaches that that aren't, we're not bringing the chairs down, we could position someone in a spot that essentially directs people as to what part of the beach they should go, and also kind of monitor when we get to a certain capacity. So those are the types of things that we've been talking about and how we would do if we need to do them. I mean, again, it does look like that social distancing is here for the foreseeable future, and those are the things that we're looking at. We're very fortunate with our concessionaire that it's someone who's in the business, who already is in a situation where they understand how to do the takeout food and how to put a process in place. So those things are already being looked at and addressed. So I do think we're in pretty good shape as far as again, waiting for the final decisions on other types of items.
Yeah, so if I just chime in for a second, touching on Russell and Rich, and I spoke to the mayor on Saturday. He was at Cooper's Beach, and we talked about getting some discussions going on amongst everybody, and more importantly, probably getting them amongst ourselves so we can get this, a plan going forward is going to be extremely important. Employee safety and public safety is the number one, top of the list right now. And I believe working with the department heads, the chief, the trustees, reaching out with each other, as well as the mayor, everybody coordinating and getting this done to a point where it's safe and it works well. I think we will get that done, and it's going to require us all to communicate with each other, which I know will happen. So let's just take a bunch of the things that were mentioned today and start reaching out to each other and putting a plan together, coming back to the administrator and the chief and Gary and everybody else. And I think we'll get some good stuff going.
That sounds good. Thank you, Trustee Parrish. I think that's a great idea. We'll continue to stay in close communication, and then we'll address and brainstorm about the issues of how to deal with these issues that we've been discussing. And then we'll come back to the group here for next steps. And if anyone would like to join us on the call with the county executive regarding beaches, open invitation. So we'd love to include everyone. So on that call. So I guess I think that's good for this discussion. I don't know if there's anything else prior to adjourning the meeting. Russell, if there's anything else, we'd love to hear. If not, we can make a motion to adjourn.
The only thing I want to add is just a little bit of an update. The discussion was about organized sports, as to whether or not, your little leagues and your soccers and those types of things. There are municipalities that have completely, canceled the season. I think that we right now are still in a holding pattern, and our organizations understand and are being helpful in that regard. Parades, pretty much everyone has postponed their Memorial Day parade. And then again, special events, I think we're staying in tune with special events. I think that, I don't have the list in front of me, but I think there's some communication out with a couple of decision points regarding changing some dates, if the board could look at that and get some feedback so that we could get that set up. And then and again, I just would ask that, especially Chief, give some thought to how we could cooperatively work if we need to have, additional monitoring at parks and or beaches Since, ordinance and enforcement falls under police, it's probably the best place for this to be. But how we could cooperatively, manage staff so that we can, efficiently and appropriately and safely, welcome the public, welcome our residences to our, our parks, our beaches. Gary, you've got to start to think about, soon, it's going to be a situation with benches. Again, we'll probably get guidance from, the county and the state, on those items. But, whether there's, type of signage we want to do or types of things that we want to do, that type of forward thinking. So, that is pretty much it on the open spaces. I think it's important just to very quickly say that we still have not gotten any new guidance. And again, Brian, please step in with regards to the election.
Can I just add something?
Yeah.
I just wanted to say that, Rich, in your discussion, you had mentioned on the calls, of course, there's an East Hampton view and a western part of the view. I was interested in understanding that a little bit more, and I just wanted to share that some of the concern I had been hearing from the residents, and I know others on this call, is that there'll be a great pent-up demand. It's not just the beaches, it's, as Russell mentioned earlier, it's will there be sufficient parking? So I just wanted to ask Rich if you had called a view that might be valuable for the public to hear.
Well, sure. The view from the eastern portion is as because they have experienced an influx of people on the weekends as the weather has improved. So I think they're more of a stand down, close, the access type of point of view. And from the westerly point of view, from another supervisor in the West End, again, would like to see no county parks open for the same reasons. And from where I sit, I don't agree with that. I guess I'm telling you, I don't agree with that concept. I do like to have as much access as we can, possibly have, and safely do at the same time with actually what Trustee Parrish alluded to. So that's what I was referenced to. An East End representative made it clear that they are having some issues because they have some state parks. There, as Russ pointed out, some areas like the town has a multitude of beaches that spread out. Other municipalities have not just their own, but county and state, park areas that are gathering. Fortunately, for lack of a better word, the only ones we have to monitor are our own. We only have village really at the park at the end. But so it's, at this point, as Russ said, based on whatever direction comes from the state, because again, it comes down from there first, and the governor clearly is mapping out a way to softly open particular areas, but he's also, I think, made it clear, recreation areas, like even with lighting it up on marinas and so forth, he's made it clear that, I think, in my interpretation, that life will eventually resume, and it will be tough. Will there be pent-up demand? Absolutely, but I'm not coming from the camp to shut everything down and keep everybody out, because I don't think that'll work. But go through and see what happens, and then if a problem does address it. And I do think we have the capability to address it.
Thanks for sharing
probably
that.
a little like.
Thanks,
Thank
Rich.
you very much, everyone. So if we're okay, I think we can stay in close communication. We'll make sure we're touching base, obviously regularly, work together. And with that said, we can make a motion. I can make a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.